All right, guys. Today we have Brian Huff with Modern Roofing Group out in Colorado. How are you today, Brian?
I am great. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So excited to have you. We share a mastermind group together. We both kind of throw some opinions around, some ideas, help each other out, help each other grow a little bit. You've got a lot different business than I have, and really different than pretty much anybody I've talked to at this point. Being in that Denver market, Denver area, where you experience a lot of storms, a lot of insurance work, and I know you've got a really great way of handling that, and not just a great way of handling it, but a real understanding of how it all works. So we'll dive into that here in a bit. I think there's a lot of value in your explanation into that, but I think to start, who's Brian Huff? Who is Modern Roofing Group? Kind of give us what started this and how you got to where you're at today.
Well, I am me, Brian Huff, and I was born in Pennsylvania in the early 80s. Grew up in a family of tradesmen. So my dad is a carpenter and a blacksmith. Uncles are landscapers, masons, like old school guys who they're not going to do something unless they do it right, and they do it so that someone can walk in and behind them and say, wow, this is a great job. That's something to be proud of. So that's kind of where I learned how to approach life. Really was if you're going to do something, do it right and make sure you're proud of it. And then someone else can walk in and say, man, that's definitely something Brian did, because that's what he's known for. So in addition to that, I was, hanging around with them a lot. So I saw them, build stuff, build picnic tables, build furniture, build or fix something on the house. And so I was always just watching them and, kind of pecking at what they were doing. And so I kind of grew into all that stuff, using your hands to build something or fix something. So yeah, so that's where my family background is. And so there's a lot of doers in my blood. So it's nice to look back and be kind of proud of that, where I came from. But joined the Army out of high school, stayed in for 3 years, jumped out of airplanes, ran around the woods up in Alaska, got to shoot a lot of guns and damaged my hearing permanently. So if I say what a lot, that's why I can't really hear. Shot a lot of guns. So got out of that and then went down to Florida, got a degree in audio engineering because I'm a musician, and I thought that would be cool to go work at a music studio and meet a lot of really talented people, but that didn't really work out. So I transitioned into selling windows and doors at Home Depot, and then realized that I am not making any money doing this. So why don't I just go do this myself? So started buying tools and picking up little jobs here and there, little handyman stuff. And from there worked for a professional handyman company after we moved up here to Denver. And then it was I guess it was 2009, 2010, right after the recession, I got laid off and nobody was paying to have their window caulked anymore. Cause it just, little stuff like that, projects like that went away because there just wasn't any more money. So I went to work for a really wealthy person for a couple of years, just as their personal handyman. I was like, this is a cool gig. And then that fizzled out. And I was like, all right, what am I doing next? And that was when I started a family. So back when you went to Craigslist to look for a job, there was make $150,000 a year selling roofs. And I was like, I can do that, I guess. So started a sales position job at a national roofing company. They have since changed their name and a whole bunch of bad stuff went on, but just kind of started there in a sales position. They had a pretty good sales training because they were really heavy on knocking doors, just flooding neighborhoods with door knockers. So I learned it was like baptism by fire. You don't make money unless you sell a job. So it's you're knocking from sun up to sundown and you don't get to see your family. And it was a good test of my grit and just teaching myself about myself in that aspect, because I hadn't really been challenged like that before. So I learned a lot about other people, and I learned that I do like other people when they're nice to me. And so I liked helping people, and that was what drove me so much. Was I really want to help these people. They seem to have pride and ownership in their house, and I know I can help them. I need to figure out how to connect me with them on that aspect. I need to help them understand that I'm not a storm chaser. I'm not here to steal their money and run off, like the reputation of a lot of door knockers, but I'm genuinely here to help them. And the way that company had me just pressing people all the time, it just didn't work out. So I was like, can I just transition into a production role model or a production role in the company? I said, yeah, fine. So I went to production. So I was more like, during the build, I was there to take pictures and make sure the colors were right. And so that was okay. And then a coworker went to work for another company, and they're like, hey, you need to come with me to this company because they treat you a lot better, and they're a great company. And so started hopping to companies that way. But I've done everything from first year in sales all the way up to general manager for a national roofing company. And through that course of my career, when I was general manager, my last role, COVID happened. And this was just after we launched a branch here in Denver. It was a company out of Austin. And so they have like 4 or 5 branches down in Texas. And then they headhunted me and said, hey, we want you to open a branch for us up in Denver because we know you guys get a lot of hail and there's new construction. I was like, let's go. This is the next step in my career. Let's do this. So, as soon as they hired me, it was like, I think I got hired like January 2020. And then they finally like slowly sent up a computer, and then they sent up a truck. And then, so all these things started to trickle in, but I was working out of my house the whole time. And then they're like, okay, now we need you to go get an office for us so that we can get Google Maps started and get our location set up through Google and start all that. I was like, okay, cool. And then bam, COVID. You can't leave your house.
The world shut down.
Yeah, everyone's on lockdown. And here's a letter from the mayor of Denver. You can't leave your house. And so I'm like calling down to Austin home office. I'm like, hey, I can't go find an office for us yet. I can't, we can't leave our house. They're like, what are you talking about? I'm like, oh, you're in Texas. You guys have always been able to do whatever you wanted. So they're like, they're scratching their head. They don't get it. I'm like, look, we can't leave our houses. Like, I can barely even go get groceries right now, let alone go find an office. So they're like, all right, well, just do something. I'm like, okay. So I was just, searching for a place and like lining up all these appointments for when we're able to leave. But it was the slowest progression I've ever seen. It's like, oh, this is so frustrating. And so finally got an office, and it just took forever because I didn't get the control I needed up here to do what I needed to do to get this thing rolling. And there was so much 50,000 foot view from them. Like, no, do this, do that. You've never started an office before. We have. So you do this and do that. I'm like, but that's not how it works up here in Denver. It's different in Texas, so
Texas is its own country.
It is.
It's great. Don't get me wrong. I love Texas, but they operate on a different set of rules.
They do. And so I was trying to be very, aggressive in getting this thing going because I believed in myself. I believed in what the company was trying to do. And there's so much constraint up here. And it was just like, it got to a point where they're like, all right, we're just going to let you go. Because by that time I had hired 2 sales reps. I was training them myself. They didn't give me any training or any SOP at all. I had to make it all up and write it like myself based on my experience. So it was like, okay, I'm really having to do everything by myself, but they had all the marketing themselves down there. So I couldn't put like posts on Facebook in this location up here like you would want to do. Like, hey, we're in Denver, we're doing this and that. It was all remotely done down there. And I'm like, nobody knows we exist. Nobody even, unless we go knock on a door or I drive up and down the road with the logo on the side of the truck, nobody knows we're here. So it was a big frustration when they had that kind of control. And they're just like, go sell, go sell. I'm like, ugh. And so it was very frustrating. So they let me go. They're like, we're just going to keep one sales rep on for a while. And for a while, it looked like they were just going to shut the whole thing down and just, ship the computer back down to them and take the truck back or whatever. But I was kind of glad. I was like, it felt so much that I could do that I knew would work, but there was so much constraint and control that they said, no, don't do that. Don't do that. And so I'm like, fine, whatever. So they let me go. And I was quite happy that day. I was surprised, but I kind of knew it was coming, but I was like, oh, finally. And then the next day I started my company because my girlfriend's like, you just need to go do your own thing. She's like, once you do, you will never look back and you will never imagine yourself working for somebody ever again, because she's an entrepreneur too. And so I was like, scary. This is scary. Yeah. And then I started and She's like, you don't have a book of business. That's why it's so scary. You don't have anybody asking you to come help them. So you need to go. And she kept just keep going. And so it was very encouraging.
What year was that, Brian? What year did you start Modern Roofing Group?
That was 2020. So that was like, I would say
right
that was
mid COVID then.
Yeah, it was like maybe Q4 of 2020. And so it was like really crappy. Nobody needed a roof. We didn't have any hail. I mean, I was trying to go back on all the old hail dates and just go hit those neighborhoods and be like, hey, did you file a claim or look up permit records to see if anybody had, because you can search everyone's address and see when their last roof permit was pulled and who pulled it. And so it's kind of convenient that way, but it's very tedious. So you're basically back to walking down the street and looking up, and if a roof looks kind of old, you just go knock on their door and say, hey, did you get how was the claims process, or whatever your pitch is. And then you kind of get people to like, what? We already had our roofs done like last year. So you're like, okay. And then you like, okay, I need to train myself some more. I'm really missing on that. So I learned a lot about what I was good at and what I was weak at. And so I just focused on all that stuff. But
sure,
man, it was scary. But I went through, started calling friends and saying, hey, can I just do an inspection for practice, and kind of snowballed from there, and got a one referral from my girlfriend's client. And they said, hey, come do our roof. We want you to do it. And it was my first official roof replacement. It was like a $40,000 job. I'm like, oh, sweating so hard. Like, this has to go perfect. This is my first one. But at the same time, I'm like, I got to learn from this. Even if I mess up, I just got to keep going and remember that I have the skills to do it. So that was it. And there it was like across the street, hey, check out my roof. And then the next door neighbor, hey, check out my roof. And I just went from there. But started off as Modern Construction Group because in the beginning I was doing like bathroom remodels and siding repair, window install, like the typical startup.
I think everybody starts that way.
Yeah.
I don't want to say everybody. I would say the majority of us definitely start with offering services pretty much across the board just to get reps in, get in the house, get in and pitch the sale, and even just to try to turn a little bit of profit. I know we did. I mean, we would, there's nothing we didn't do. Heck, at one time we had a concrete division, roofing division, and remodel. We had three, doesn't have anything to do with each other, so we didn't make any profit when we had those three divisions. So I thought we were really doing it right too.
It's strictly a practice company. It's not even a real company.
That's right. You got to get a lot of practice in. But so you've been at it about 3 years, a little over 3 years now then.
Mm-hmm.
What along those 3 years, what single thing was the most difficult hurdle to cross that you found so far?
I think learning how to maintain cash flow, because I would do a roof and make a pretty substantial profit. I think my first roof, I walked away with 20 grand in my pocket, like everything paid for, permit, labor, materials, all that. And I had 20 grand in my pocket. I'm like, crap, I already have a big snowball. I need to keep pushing this and make it get bigger and bigger. So general liability insurance, I was at like $1,800 a month just like, oh my God, this is insane. I got to pay this again next month. I got to get a pipeline going. So I didn't have a temptation to go like buy a car or, spend it on $1,000 bottle of whiskey or something stupid like that.
Right.
I was always very disciplined about it. Like I would just pretend I didn't even have it. Yeah. So I would use that like, hey, did you see us replacing your neighbor's roof last week? I'd like to help you out, and kind of stepping stone it from there. But I think cash flow is the biggest thing. Anticipating, how long is this going to last me? And then you get down to like, I did a spreadsheet, like my operating costs per month, and I included my own salary, which I think was like $1,000 a week or something, maybe not even that. And so I was at like just a very nominal amount. And I'm like, okay, based on the cash that I have in my pocket right now and my operating costs I just calculated, this money will last me 3 more months. So I have until 3 more months to get paid in full on the next job. So I kind of paced myself with that kind of outlook. And so that was a big learning curve, but it was like, I wasn't dumb to that. And I knew I didn't know how to do that, but I basically I didn't really have any operating costs other than insurance. Oh, I think I just bought my truck too. And so I had the truck payment, I had my owner's salary, I had my tech subscriptions, which would have been like Builder Trend was my first CRM. And that was like, it's like a home builder or remodeler CRM. It's really robust. You can do a lot of stuff in it, but it's very expensive. It was like $700 a month. And I was like, I have one customer and I'm paying $700 a month for this. And I'm like, but I'd rather start off with what I want to have rather than like wait a long time and have to transition into what I wanted to have. So I'm just like, I better base this off of how I want to run the company and the operating costs or my break-even point now so that I can budget for that moving forward. So I used that for a while, and then just learning how to just job cost and then bid jobs. I mean, I read this book. I reference it like every day, almost.
Yeah.
Like Markup and Profit, Michael C. Stone. I listen to whatever podcast he's been on. I listen to it. So learning how to do that and studying how other people have failed and learn from their mistakes. So just like trying to be a really smart business minded person. Like I know how to install a roof. That's not going to be the problem. I know how to fix a leak. That's not going to be the problem. But the problem is I've never been a CEO before. I've never been a business owner before. So I need to focus on that. So that was like the biggest learning curve, the biggest thing I learned.
Well, and you said a lot there, and I want to break a little bit of it down because there's one piece in particular that I think is something to note that every contractor I know that has failed or is struggling did wrong, and that is the cash flow and having that discipline. One thing I've always been very, very conservative with my finances until really, really recently. I haven't done anything extravagant, and it's not even that I do anything too extravagant now, but I'm talking didn't take a vacation for like 7 years, nothing extravagant. We never took deposits ever. We still to this day do not take a deposit. I'm not saying that's the way to go. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. It was just, it was part of our sales pitch because in my area, contractors are so bad and they're so dishonest and they take deposits, don't show up, or they show up months after they said they're going to. And I didn't want that headache. I didn't want that animosity with my customers saying, well, you said you'd be here on the 15th and it's the 16th. Why aren't you here? Right. I just didn't, because they're very hesitant at getting ripped off. And I get it because I've seen it. I've watched it myself and I just didn't want to be a part of that. So one thing I always did that I think, guys getting started or early in, COD everything. Force yourself to pay that. I used to deal with Carter Lumber on everything. I bought everything off Carter. And just because I had a relationship, and I recommend that also, find a great supplier and put as many of your eggs in that basket as you can, because you'll build a relationship. You'll become priority for deliveries. You get great communication. You usually get a rep that will handle you and make you top of their priority list. If you're short a piece of material, they'll run it to you on the fly. Yeah. But when we bought from Carter, it must have been 2 years before I ever even set an account up. I was strictly a COD account for like 2 years. Yeah. Every time they bring a load of framing material or shingles or whatever, I gave the driver a check, and I had to make good and sure that bank account wasn't going to bounce that check. So I had to be super conservative with my money because I'm actually fronting the project. Yeah. Now, don't get me wrong. When we were finished, I walked away with payment. It wasn't like there was no 14 days, 30-day net, none of that. The agreement was when we finish, we leave with payment. I still operate that way. That's exactly how our business model is today. But I never have had a situation where I couldn't pay for the job and pay my people. I didn't have to go get another deposit. I've seen that so many times where a contractor, he's short money on the job he's working on. So he goes and bids another one, takes a deposit on it to fund the job that he's working on. Yeah. That's the fastest way to go bankrupt. Like literally get your ass sued, go bankrupt. That is how you're going to do it. So I think you're exactly right. The discipline. But that same guy, he's driving a $60,000 truck with $5,000 worth of wheels and tires and big sound system. And you know what I mean? Like, so that's not how it works. It doesn't work that way. Priority one, material and labor. You pay those.
Right.
Once that's paid and then you get paid, then you can put money in your pocket. But you better be sure you got some money to start the next one. Don't go buy the truck and the wheels and tires until you've got that next job up and going and money circulating and things working out. Because I've in my little area here, I have witnessed it so many times, firsthand witnessed it, so yeah, you're exactly right. You got to be disciplined in your expenses and how you handle your money. But so, I know you went from Modern Construction Group to Modern Roofing Group. I'm sure that's because you saw that the profit was in roofing for you, and that was where you were making your best money, made the most sense for you. You do still offer paint as one of your services. Can you give us just a quick why? I'm curious for myself.
Well, in our climate, we have like 430 days of sun or something like that. It's a lot. So the paint on houses here really just it just burns through it. And so in an effort to like beautify someone's home, a new roof looks good, but what if we put new gutters on, improve the drainage, and then painted your house, and you would pull in the driveway like you have the model home? Trying to sell that emotional connection is really good because people want to feel like this is my sanctuary. This is my beautiful little island in this, world that we live in. But painting is easy. Is really easy. I've never, like in roofing, let's say you bid a roof job, you tear everything off. Oh my God, there's another layer under here. Okay, change order. Tear that off. Oh my God, there's 14 pieces of rotten decking. Okay, change order. And then it's like all the insulation's wet after we tore. Okay, change order. So it's like a roof you can bid and estimate to a certain point, but there's still unknowns. But when you estimate to paint a house, it's like you can see everything you're going to paint. You can see there's like 2 pieces of rotten trim around this window. We're going to replace that because we can't get the paint to stick if we don't. So there's very little change orders with paint. So you can really price them really tight, but still get a good profit on it. And the other thing is I have one paint crew. It's a father-son duo. They are awesome. They are just wizards at paint. And I walk with them, with the homeowner, and we all walk together around the house. And hey, do you have any areas where you noticed something that you want us to pay special attention to or whatever? And we all just take pictures and walk around, and it's a very inclusive meeting about the paint on their house. And they feel like, man, these guys are really taking care of me. They're not just showing up and spraying and running away. And so when we do that, it really adds a level of care and focus on them. But painting is very easy. We have a short amount of time that we can do it. I shouldn't say short. I say we have a limited amount of time because of the temperatures that we get here and the snow and all that stuff. So we offer roofing, gutters, and paint because those are the 3 big things that happen to a house in a claim, or when you think about the exterior of your home, it's like we're getting a new roof, but the paint is really faded, and so we just throw it in there like, hey, I know we're only doing your roof, but we can do your paint too on the house and really spiffy it up or add some value and curb appeal. So it's like another like optional upgrade that sometimes people don't even think about because they just see their house every day, and it's hard to notice the fade when it's so gradual and it happens over a long period of time. But when we walk up and you look at the neighbor's house, it's like, oh, okay, you can see the difference here. Or we present that as like a professional observation. It's not like, hey, you don't take care of your house. You haven't painted it in 7 years. Look at it. It's like you present that you try to connect that emotional connection to that decision. And then it's like, okay, we're going to do all 3 trades. This is going to be a highly profitable job because I've dialed in those 3 different trades. Even though we perform them separately sometimes, we throw them in there as an option anyway, just to improve the ticket number or ticket value. And I have a lot of confidence in the paint team, the gutter team. It's just really dialed in. So I don't see any reason not to offer it. But yeah, there's guys that just do roofing. And it's like, well, why don't you do gutters too? Because, that's just the next trade over. And I was like, all right, let's find a couple of good gutter crews. So I got that. And then it's like, well, we should do paint too, because everyone needs paint. So found a good paint crew. So it just made sense to me. But I understand why a lot of people don't do it, because it can be frustrating, or they just don't want to add that onto their list, or they just want to do roofing and that's it. But for me, it just makes sense because all three of those trades are profit machines for us.
Makes good sense to me. I mean, I get it. It's not real prevalent here just because everything's vinyl sided. Every house here is vinyl siding. Don't get me wrong. I've got a great friend that has a freaking rock star paint business. And he, when we were building homes, he did all of them. And there's always room for margin on his work too. But here it's interior, it's not exterior. So it doesn't really fit with the model that we have. But so right now I understand it's you're wearing still most of the hats, and you've got some really, really solid crews, subcontract. What's your plan for future growth, if any, for your team in-house? What's that look like? Employees, staff, where are you going and how are you going to get there?
I'm going to sell my company in about 19 years when I'm about 60. So working right to left instead of left to right, I've got to chop those years up into progressions. And so right now I'm finishing up the process and how I first acquire a customer, what that cost is, how I sell to that customer, and how that job is built and collected on. Three-legged stool, sell work, do work, keep score, So that's getting fine-tuned like every project. I mean, it will always be evolving and improving, but I think I have that dialed in pretty good. But I get to the point where it's like, I'm getting really good at going and selling, because I don't like change my personality when I'm around people. I like to be around people and listen to them, be an active listener, and say back to them, you have this problem. You just said that your driveway is always an ice sheet every time it snows or rains. So why don't we turn the gutter and aim it this way? And so they're like, oh, you're solving my problem. You're not just going to try to sell me a whole new gutter system or put a new roof on or whatever. It's like, all you're here to do is solve my problem. So I'm good at listening and selling jobs. So I think that is my greatest strength. So I need other people to fill in behind me, the production side or the admin side. So my next step is probably a virtual assistant of some sort. And with the way I have everything set up with tech, it's very easy. Anyone can do it remotely. You don't have to physically go anywhere. And so I like that, because that doesn't limit me to people that can physically be in town or lives here or has to come to my office. It can be anyone from anywhere. So I have a wider range of people that could do the job. So the next step would be admin or virtual assistant. And then from there, it would probably be, someone physically doing the production side, going to the job as it's being built, taking pictures, helping clean up, running materials or something, whatever that really needs to be. So I can just keep going to sell, and I'll sell as long as I can, because I'm the reason there's income. You don't take me and put me in a production position and then try to hire someone to sell, because that's not going to work. Yeah. So I know that my biggest strength is to go sell. So I'm just going to keep doing that. And then I'm going to bring in admin and then production. And then from there, it'll probably be another sales rep, and then probably like one production person per two, like we talked about, per two sales reps. And then as soon as we get there and then grow from there, it'll kind of like multiply from that basic nucleus. Like
that's the model, and just replicate it.
Yeah, just replicate that.
Yeah. So I guess you brought up tech, and I obviously know a little bit back into your story and what you're doing today, but we use some of the same stuff. What is it that you're using? But we've got about 10 more minutes before I got to run, but let's look at about what you're using, how you're using it in your daily business, and what's that alleviating you of?
Yeah. So I mentioned before I was using Buildertrend, which is a really big CRM, but you have to do everything in there. You have to physically upload every picture. You have to physically upload every document and manually type everything. So it was a big time suck. So I dropped that, and I had a temporary CRM, And then I was still searching for the next one I was going to use, but I needed something that was really going to free up my time, automate stuff for me, just do things automatically. So I click, oh crap, I forgot to ask them if they got the contract in the email and they could open it. And it's like all that stuff is like keeps me up at night. So I joined the mastermind group with you guys, and John was on and talking about ProLine, and it turned into CRM. And I'm like, I got to look into this thing because it sounds really kind of what I need. So ProLine, I use ProLine now. Automations frees up my time, sells for me, does a lot of stuff that I would like literally need to hire someone else to do for me. So use ProLine for that. Obviously, Company Cam for pictures and video. I like to send my customers a link to all their pictures and videos so that they can see that they feel like they get some value out of that. And so you use a little bit of like, let's see, I would say like I used to use Sumo Quote for proposals, but ProLine has that now. So that's all integrated.
And just to drop a plug real quick for John and ProLine, it'll be a few episodes prior to this one, but we interviewed John and primarily discussed ProLine. And I'll tell you a funny story about that. We were using ProLine. We've been using it for quite a while now. I don't know, a couple years, maybe a year and a half, something like that. We went to transition into a bigger CRM because when at the end, not the end, toward the later half of 23, we realized that we were outgrowing the CRM we were using, and we were going to have to make a switch. And so we decided that we were going to consider going into HubSpot. And HubSpot's fantastic. I'm not downplaying what it can do. It can do everything. Like I don't think you can ever outgrow it, but it comes with a price tag, and it's difficult to use for someone like me. Someone like me, not really wired to use that much of a CRM. So long story short, we opt out of ProLine. We go into another messaging tech and start building out a HubSpot. I interviewed John a while back, a handful of weeks ago, and he explains to me what ProLine has done over the last 3 months in building their CRM. I'm sitting here listening, and I'm like, shit, I screwed up, man. I screwed up. And what I find so interesting, and I sent John a text yesterday just saying, man, your team is a group of rock stars. Like what they've done in this short amount of time. Yeah, you told me they were going to do that. I didn't believe you because I've been told that by so many companies. And, we have tried. We've tried sticking with a CRM because they're saying next quarter, this, and this are coming out. And so we stick it out with them. And then they tell us, oh, that's next year, not next quarter, next year. And so, John tells me that they're going to do all these things. And I'm like, okay, yeah, sure you are. Everybody else is saying the same thing right now. Right. They freaking did it, man. And when I interviewed him, as soon as we hit the stop button, I jumped on ProLine and started investigating to see what all was really done. And damn, they have it done. And they're still adding, and they're giving me some information of what's to come. If you're a contractor in the roofing space, especially, Company Cam and ProLine. If you've got those two, QuickBooks to run your numbers, or as far as I'm concerned, stay out of QuickBooks. Give an accountant or give a CPA your QuickBooks. Stay the hell out of it. I do. I just have them send me a report once a month with a P&L and balance sheet, and that's all I see. I don't even look at it. But yeah, it is the hype, So I definitely recommend anybody looking to kind of get their business up to today's standards, that's the route to go. So didn't mean to cut you off, but yeah, it deserves a pat on the back. Not that I'm anybody, I'm a nobody, but I know what I've been looking for, and I've been looking for a long time and haven't found it. I think I found it. So it's really good.
I feel the same way because initially Buildertrend, the way they do their CRM is you invite your customer and they basically have their own website for their project. And I was like, that is awesome. They can access pictures, communication between the contractor and the adjuster, documents, anything they want. They can just go get it. They don't have to ask me for it. They'll get automatic push notifications. Hey, we uploaded some more photos. Come check them out. They can like it. They can put it on Facebook or whatever. but it's like, it's so time consuming to do all that stuff. So yeah, Proline for a company like mine, where it's just me, the automations are amazing. And in addition to Proline, you integrate with Dope Marketing. So as soon as we schedule a job, boom, they get like 4 weeks of cards mailed out to all the neighbors. It's like, I don't even have to go knock doors. They already know we're coming. And then all the other integrations that are coming with that too. Eagle View's coming, QuickBooks is coming. So, I mean, all this stuff you do in Proline gets sent over to QuickBooks. It's like, it's going to be amazing. But you're right. Like, I'll chat on the Proline website or on my, portal, and I'll say, hey, this looks like it's a glitch or something. And they're like, okay, we'll fix that tonight. And I get an email like, just kidding, I just fixed it right now. It's like, oh, come on. It's awesome.
They're totally well, and I just got off a pretty long phone call with one of the members, and yesterday, now they're offering unlimited half-hour Zoom calls for support. So, nobody else is doing that. Nobody else is supporting their software. And here's the thing: we're roofers. Like, we need support. We need help.
Yeah.
We're not all real well versed in technology. So getting that half an hour Zoom call anytime you need it is huge. I mean, nobody else is doing that. So so let's get off Proline for a minute here. I got 2 last questions for you. This one's going to have to be a little shorter, unfortunately. But your model, you're selling insurance work. Mm-hmm. You're in a storm area. You have to be selling insurance work. But I know you don't do it like everybody else does. Give us, the 5-minute how you're selling insurance work different than everybody else.
I used to use Xactimate, which a lot of the insurance adjusters use. Sometimes they use Symbility, or they're starting to get their own estimating software. So it's like, okay, now we got to go learn how they do it. And so I started off with Xactimate. I went to Xactimate training with John Dye. I did some really intensive, like, this is how you need to write your estimates and do all this and that and line items and how you price it. And I was like, okay, but it would take me like 2 days to write one estimate. So I'm like, okay. And I would write it up, and it would be like $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 more than the initial estimate. And it's like, they'll come back and be like, denied. And I'm like, why? And like, how did you price out this much per line item for? It's like, well, I'm using roofer hours for this line item. You're using a demo crew for this. I don't have 2 different crews. I have to pay one crew to do all this work. So they're like, okay, denied. And I'm just like, I can't use their price list to bid jobs for my company. So I stopped using Xactimate. I line item my jobs with Proline using my pricing, because that's how I run my business, by the numbers. I don't run it by Xactimate numbers or a zip code average numbers, because $130 a square, great. Okay, that's for like a builder grade, GAF natural shadow, but we're putting on HDZ because that's what the customer wants. And that's substantially more than that. Plus, I need nails. You don't even have a line item for nails. Oh, well, it's included in the line item for shingles. No, it's not. And so you get to this frustration point where you're like, I'm not even going to use that book anymore. I'm using my own book. So that's where I am. Everything's bid out through Proline. I can show or hide the quantities and prices for each line item. And I do that for the adjuster. I'll send that to him. Like, here's our pricing based on the customer choosing us to do the work. So that's where that is. But yeah, I had a hard time getting anything approved using the insurance's price book. So, and if that even gets to a point where I'll just tell the homeowner, hey, why don't you finance the whole project, pay for it in full, and tell the insurance, hey, we just paid for this. This is what it cost us. Reimburse us. Because when it comes down to it, that is what it says in your policy. And so as roofers, we're not allowed to talk about policy. And so I just say, you need to educate yourself. Here's our 2-page document. Go ask these questions to your adjuster. They'll give you the answers, and that will confirm that this is how it's really supposed to go, because they're not going to tell that to you up front. They're going to tell you get 3 bids, find the cheapest roofer, and go do that. And it's like, that's how the insurance industry is really hurting us by doing that and making people believe that they are in good hands, or they can call Jake and things are going to be all right. When it's like, they'll spend $37 million to have a celebrity on a commercial, but they won't give you $300 for a new downspout or a new gutter. It's like, come on, that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
So
Well, it's crazy too, because I mean, you're talking about what they want you to put on. My supplier doesn't even sell anything but HDZs. They don't even sell natural shadows or even HDs anymore. They only carry HDZs.
Yeah.
So it's like, you can't make me put something on that I can't get.
Yeah.
So but you do it basically clear through a full retail model. Are you sharing the price of those line items? Because I don't break it out for them. They ask me to, and I tell them no.
Yeah, I tell them, well, what would happen if we made the boxes and nails cheaper? It doesn't change anything. This is the price if we do the roof, and it's $0 if we don't do the roof. There is no middle ground.
No.
This is it. So what is the point of knowing how much, a box of plastic cap nails is? It doesn't change anything. And we're still going to do it for this price. So right. I think that's the insurance way of trying to like find what the pricing is for everybody. And maybe they go back and tell the homeowner, hey, your roofer's ripping you off. Look how much more they are than us. And then I go to the homeowner like, hey, look how much your insurance is telling you they're a roofer by bidding the job incorrectly. They don't even have nails on here. How am I supposed to install this? So it really puts the homeowner in a bad spot. Like, well, who am I supposed to believe? So I do break everything out when it's necessary. But when I first bid the job, every job is bid as if it's retail. Your roof will cost $12,000 to replace. Not the shingles will cost $130 a square, and this box of nails. So it's like they don't care about that. It's just a point where they're going to be like, oh my gosh, look how much they're charging us for a roll of felt. What if they used a different felt brand? It's like, you're just opening that can of worms where it's like, no, because nobody talks about that when you buy a new car. Like, well, what if you put cheaper door handles on? Then it would lower the price by 30 cents per month. It's like, what? That's ridiculous.
No, and then I'll tell you a quick one. So we had a storm last year. We never get storms, and we started having to deal with this a little bit. We don't deal with insurance hardly ever here, but what happened was they're starting to buck us on doing these replacements. Well, our price is like $2,000 off, or say 10% off or something. Well, the zip code that they're using is in Southern West Virginia. Nothing wrong with Southern West Virginia. We work in Southern West Virginia, but the storm was in Ohio. Mm-hmm. Property values where we had this storm are substantially higher, and income level is substantially higher in that area. So they're using the zip code from a lower income area and a lower property value area for somewhere that's significantly higher.
Yeah.
Well, as soon as we caught them, and mind you, this happened a handful of times, same company, but it happened multiple times. And once we realized, because we don't understand insurance real well here, we realized what was going on and why these prices were so different. We caught it. They put in the right zip code because we called them out on it. Holy crap. Now our price is right. Now we're real close to being in line with their price. It does pay to do a little bit of investigation in that, because they're not honest. They're trying, they're throat cutting. They're trying to get out as cheap as possible. They're trying to make money too, but you can't take a loss on their dime. So, right. At the end of the day, you got to call them out when they need called out. But I think everybody should switch from being storm chasers to selling a retail project in a storm area, because it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You need to put a quality roof on. You need to have a good customer experience. It shouldn't just be wham, bam, thank you, ma'am. And insurance should pay for it anyway. That's why you pay for the insurance. If they need to increase rates, that's on them. But that's what you've been paying for the last 10 years. So I want to ask you one last thing before we roll. You're in a little bit of a snowy area as I am. What is your winter project to prepare for 24?
The winter project right now is marketing. I really need to increase my digital awareness. So I've hated Facebook for all my life, but it's like I can't have a Facebook page for my business without a personal page. So it's like, okay, I get that, but you're kind of at the mercy of all that stuff. So I'm trying to get into all that stuff and learn the best way to approach that, and just listening to podcasts about that and how everyone's done that. So marketing and brand awareness is the big big effort this year. So I get some reports from my marketing company that does my website and everything, and they tell me, hey, here's your map and how you're increasing your visibility in the area. So it's good, but I think, from my efforts, I need to do a better job of taking more videos and more educational stuff to look like the expert. So when someone lands on our page or finds us, they can grow that trust even faster rather than, okay, you have 5-star reviews. That's great and all. But so that's the big effort this year is marketing.
Well, good. Yeah. And I mean, unfortunately, I mean, you might see the same customer a couple times in your business life just with the potential of storms and whatnot. But even then, I mean, you're not going to see repeat customers very often in our line of work. You can't rely on word of mouth forever. You can only get to a certain size off word of mouth. Eventually, you got to go throwing yourself out there, feed yourself to the wolves, and let them get aware that you're there, and hopefully you do a good enough job for past customers that you have those reviews once they find you that they can reflect back on and build that trust. So, but regardless, Brian, any final thoughts from you? Any tips, pointers?
Always continue to learn and push yourself to education and awareness of what you're doing right, what you're doing wrong, and just keep pushing. Ask for help. Definitely. You can't do it all. I mean, I've learned that the hard way. So it's not a weakness. It's a sign of intelligence when you ask for help. So
no, it's not. If you want to learn, ask the guy that already did it. That's,
yep.
I mean, you never fail there. So cool, Brian. Well, I appreciate your time. I'm sure I'll be talking to you next week sometime.
Yeah. Great. Thanks.
All right, man. Yep. We'll talk to you later.
All right.